What's the big sports story that everybody's talking about today? Like, what's the definitive number one? I don't necessarily know that there is one. There's a lot of interesting things going on in the world of sports, but I don't know what is at the top of that list. Is it the fact that while the Cincinnati Bengals were beating the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football, Joe Burrow had his house broken into during the game, and it was reported to police by a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, Olivia Ponton, who was at Joe's house at the time. And now, because of tax records, it shows that this Sports Illustrated swimsuit model actually works for Joe. She's on his personal payroll. Is the big sports story Bill Belichick going to the University of North Carolina to coach college football and set his son up, Steve, who's a defensive coordinator for the University of Washington, in 3 years when he would step down? Is it the Saskatchewan Roughriders showing up as an answer on Jeopardy the other night? Did you see that? Oh, I love it. Rider Nation is everywhere. You can't buy that. Like, we are everywhere. I think for me, the big sports story, and maybe for some others, if you've been following this, is Biz and the Scottsdale Six and all of the security footage that came out on social media yesterday. How you doing? It's Maz McFly filling in for Barney today. Thanks for being part of the All New SportsCage. It's brought to you by Regina Motor Products. If you're listening on 620 CKRM or through our app, thank you very much. If you're watching the show on X or on YouTube, that's awesome as well. If you're on X, give us a follow, or if you're on YouTube at sportscage.com, hit that subscribe button. That means a ton to us, because then at least we know you're there, and then every time we go to do something, it's just going to automatically pop up, and you'll be like, oh, the cage is ready to roll live. Yeah, as I was saying, yesterday, all of the closed circuit TV security footage showed up showing how Paul Bissonnette, Biz Nasty from Spit and Chicklets, he stepped in to help a restaurant manager from 6 drunk golf guys, and then he went on to get chased through the parking lot and end up being assaulted by them and fighting them and knocking a guy out, and eventually the cops came and he was able to escape to a CVS pharmacy. This story came out a couple of weeks ago. Basically, it was Biz who tried to step in at a restaurant he said he goes to all of the time, because these drunk guys were hassling the wait staff and the management because they were too drunk and they couldn't get a drink. And then he stepped in, and then all hell broke loose from there. And because it was Biz, and he's a fighter by trade, when he did play hockey, thankfully he wasn't seriously hurt. He took on these guys. And if you saw the mug shots online, those guys got the worst of it. They looked worse for wear. Like, he barely had anything on him. And so this was a couple of weeks ago, and they've all had court appearances, but eventually, because everything is captured on camera, we knew it was eventually come out. And then yesterday it did. And so then today he was on the Pat McAfee show talking about it. Colson, if you have that ready to go, you can fire away anytime.
By the way, I just want to take this time to thank the police department and all the deputies and everybody who showed up very fast on the scene from the minute they were called at Houston's. I think the word was out there, though, because the incident was called in at the golf course, so they were aware of these guys around town. Apparently, they went to Roos Chris and other places where people have messaged that Shea Stevens being like, these guys were doing this all over town. Like, it wasn't just the golf course and not just Houston's. And also, there's somebody who's operating that camera. So shout out to the police department who operates that to end up getting that on camera to prove what these guys are about. And,
Yeah, so there it is right there. So if you haven't seen it, it's pretty much everywhere. From Barstool, it's just randomly showing up everywhere. And here's the thing, and it was found out probably within 24 to 36 hours after this all came out. Before they ended up at this Houston's place, they beat up a guy at it's called the Raven Golf Club. So they were, but the clubhouse there apparently closed early at 6 o'clock. They didn't want to leave, so they roughed up one of the employees. And this is before this all happened with Biz. So, and these guys, when they all went to court, they pled not guilty. But there's footage of them everywhere causing destruction. And I know Barney, he's one of these, let's go on a golf trip. And Eric Friend, let's go on a golf. Look what happens when these guys go on a golf trip. So I was down that rabbit hole yesterday. There's no way I don't know how these guys get off. Now, I don't know, and I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what these guys are going to be up against for charges, but it doesn't look good for them. Because some of them, as you saw some security footage of them when they're sitting in the curb, they were playing dumb. They were saying that Biz attacked them. that it was 1-on-6 from the start and they were just trying to defend themselves. But it clearly shows it's completely the other way around. Hey, if you want to be part of the show today, if you've got something to say in the biz situation or something else going on in your world, Capital Ford Lincoln text line is always open. 306-936-6262. Capital Ford Lincoln, Saskatchewan's #1 Ford retailer. CapitalFordLincoln.com. Not doing the show alone today. We never are. Colson and Allen. So we got one of the double C's and Big Al running things there in the studio. There he is right there. It's Wednesday, and that means some of your favorite guests on the show. Just after 4 o'clock, we're going to go inside the NHL with Eric Francis from Sportsnet for Southie Mainline Chrysler. It's worth the drive every time, guaranteed. Nashville. Andrew Burnett. Is he going to be the next coach? Fired. Dumpster fire. The Flames needed a win, but Nashville desperately needed a win more last night, and the Flames ended up winning. We'll get his take on that. This ultimate Christmas song bracket thing that you guys launched yesterday. So first of all, when Suits came on, he wanted to nominate a song that's not even in the bracket, correct?
Yeah, I think he misunderstood it as still building the bracket time.
Okay, so as someone who's going to misunderstand this as well, if Suits gets to add his own song, I'm adding my own song. I don't care what you guys put in there, but if Suits can add in your mean one, I have found this is a bit of a Christmas banger and a gem we'll get to in just a couple of minutes. Don't worry, it's good. But there's some songs there today. We'll do that. The National Finals Rodeo is on in Vegas. The 6th go-around was last night. We've got professional bull riding and rodeo announcer Dustin Edwards, who's going to be on the show here in just a couple of minutes to talk about not only what's happening in Vegas, but how the Canadian cowboys and cowgirls are doing. Because if you go through basically the top 50 in all of the different events, there's Canadians littered through there. And we had the Agribition Rodeo a few weeks ago, which is always one of the highlights, and some of those cowboys and cowgirls are down there. There's big money being handed out and nice buckles. I'm excited. 5 o'clock, first-time guest on the show. This should be interesting. I know I don't have thick enough skin to do two things. Be a landlord, because that's a tough job. Because a lot of landlords are slumlords, and you got to be willing to not put people first. And to be a referee in hockey, you got to have some thick skin, because you're getting it from all sides when things are. So retired NHL referee Tim Peel is going to join the show. Now, Tim is one of the hosts of the Snipes and Stripes podcast with Jeremy Roenick. We had JR on a few weeks ago before his big event in Weyburn. Very interesting guy. If you've never checked out their podcast, you get this crazy perspective, because Roenick was a player and a star, and you get Peel, who was a referee, and really looking forward to chatting with him. They had Theoren Fleury on their show last week. And if you haven't had a chance to go watch that, we all know what happened with Theoren Fleury and Sheldon Kennedy. But it's been a while to forget. So I want to ask him about that as well. Hey, don't forget, Wing Wednesdays are unbeatable at the Canadian Brew House. It's only 69 cents each wing, and it's a mountain of flavors to savor, and a flavor of the month. Do that wing thing every Wednesday at the Canadian Brew House. So Colson, yesterday for the Christmas bracket, the winning songs, if I have this correct, "I'll Be Home for Christmas" by Bing Crosby was one of the ones that won.
Yep.
And then Band-Aids
by Metro.
Yeah, and then Band-Aid, "Do They Know It's Christmas" was the other winner.
Yep.
Okay. Now, before we get to today's official songs, I want to add in that I saw this the other day and I was like, this is genius. And this is before I even knew about the song bracket. I just thought, well, this is genius. How can you take one of the best bands in the world and combine it with one of the best Christmas carols ever to have it's like when the stars align. It was like a mega compilation. But when you take Creed and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and mix it together, you get a gem. Fire away anytime. And you're welcome, by the way.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose.
Nice. No, let this play. Don't cut this off.
And if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. I love the used to laugh and call him names.
Is this
It's
actually
very
Scott Stapp? Is this actually Scott Stapp from Creed? Because that's bang on.
It's very well done, but as the unofficial commissioner of the Christmas song bracket,
Christmas bracket.
yeah, as the unofficial commissioner, which basically means I'm the graphic editor out of it. I'm not going to add that in now.
Oh, don't worry. If you just missed what we just did, that song's getting played again before the end of the show. That was Creed doing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And did you know that Creed announced all this past summer, they did the Summer of 99 tour, but now yesterday they announced Canadian dates. No Regina dates as of yet, but there's all other dates that have been announced or whatever. So one of the best bands of the world will be on tour again next summer. All right, it's time for our first break here on the All New Sports Cage. When we come back, it's time to talk rodeo, National Finals Rodeo in Vegas. And we're going to do that with Dustin Edwards. This is the All New Sports Cage on 620 CKRM. The show on Wednesdays is brought to you by Regina Motor Products. It's Maz here filling in for Barney. If you want to get in on this Christmas bracket challenge, you can just go to our Twitter account and vote for your favorite song. I believe Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You is taken on Brenda Lee's Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, and Mariah Carey is leading right now. Don't forget, just after 4, Eric Francis, and we'll go inside the NHL. But now it's time to talk a little rodeo. He's a first-time guest here on the All New Sports Cage because the National Finals Rodeo is happening in Vegas. Last night was round number 6. He's Dustin Edwards. He has his own rodeo podcast, but he's a professional bull riding and rodeo announcer. First of all, thank you for taking the time, Dustin, and welcome to the All New Sports Cage. How does one get into becoming a rodeo announcer?
Well, you're not one of the people that's competing in Las Vegas and making a living doing it. You're actually the failed rodeo competitor who obviously around your group of friends, when you tried to compete, were really vocal, like to talk a lot. I actually went to school for broadcasting. One of my first jobs in radio, my boss was Gloria Evans, who everyone in Regina knows. And,
nice.
I grew up around rodeo, got into it, and I went and did a high school rodeo on the microphone one time. And the announcer couldn't come. They said, "Hey, we'll pay you to come and talk." They had me at paid. I made a little money, started doing it. And now 16 years later, been able to make a nice little career out of it during the summer and rodeo season, I guess.
It's Dustin Edwards here joining us on the All New Sports Cage on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. The National Finals Rodeo is on in Vegas. Now, the highlight of Canadian Western Agribition every year, to me anyways, is the rodeo that was here. Maple Leaf Foods, a giant purse of $120,000. There was some great Canadian talent on display and for some of them, that transcends, as we all know, National Finals Rodeo. That is the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup championship when it comes to the rodeo world down in Vegas. Before we get to that, if you said you were a failed rodeo star, let's call you, what was your event? What did you compete in when you were competing in rodeo?
Well, when you're a kid, you grow up riding steers, then junior bull riding, and bull riding was what I was hoping to be successful in, and was not, and also did some roping. So I'm a fan of the rough stock, the bull riding, as much as I am on the roping and timed event side of things. So I cheer for all those guys because I dabbled in a little bit of both.
So I follow the NFR on Twitter, like a lot of people, or on X and the PRCA. So I'm watching. And you're seeing some of the stuff come in. The best part about rodeo, and I said this before the Agribition Rodeo, some of the coolest names in the world are in the rodeo world. And one of the guys with a cool name, to me anyways, Rocker Steiner, last night put up 89 points on Tater Tot. He won 33,687, so he won the money. He's going to get the day buckle. Rocker Steiner, this guy, the bareback riding or whatever, the thing that I saw on the weekend, what you don't see because they're completely covered up, is what they physically have to do to their bodies to tape the arms and the wrists and the shoulders and all of that. I had never seen the peek behind the curtain to see like what these guys have to go through. When you're watching a guy like a Rocker Steiner or whatever, is he one of the guys that he's going to be one of the stars for a long time, you think?
Oh yeah, this guy's here to stay. So he comes by it honestly. His dad was a world champion steer wrestler, and his dad had the long hair. He used to wear a big mink coat into the rodeo at night. He'd rip his shirt off. He had his hair in braids and dreads. When he would do the victory lap, he'd rip his cowboy shirt off. So Rocker comes by it honestly. This guy's the real deal. He's got the long hair. He gets fined the most out of any cowboy for speaking his mind. He's
What?
super edgy. Oh yeah. Yeah. He tells the judges how he feels at times.
Wow.
He is the rock and roll star. For the back number ceremony, which kicks off the NFR, he wore an all leather, like one piece outfit, something that Elvis wore back in the day to get his back number. So this guy does everything outside the box, but he's edgy. And on top of that, as you've seen last night, he's really, really good. He's like a professional. He's a professional water skier, freestyle water skier outside of rodeo. He's a wild child, and he's really, really good. And he's going to be in the hunt for a world title. This is his third NFR, and he's 20 years old.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing. So Keenan Hayes on Six Head leads with 513 points. So for anybody that knows rodeo, there's day money and then there's the championship over the 10 days. So it's important. You gotta stack some wins during the days to eventually get to the end, and it doesn't always work like that. So steer wrestling last night, Scott Gunther, 3.8 seconds. That's quick.
Yeah, that's quick. And the best part about it, he's Canadian.
And that's why we wanted to have you on, because Dustin, when you look at the top 50 in every category, and this is the American money, there are so many Canadians, maybe more than ever before, that are not only there, but doing well, like last night. So he takes home $33,687 US. Well, when you're going to convert that back to Canadian or whatever, that's a nice little payday. How proud are you as a Canadian rodeo guy when you see Canadian cowboys doing well?
Oh, I mean, that's everything. It's the reason why all these small towns across Western Canada put on rodeos. You know, it's obviously a big part of the community, but it is truly the roadmap to getting guys to the Canadian or to the Wrangler National Finals. And that's what the cool story on Scott Gunther is. Scott had made the NFR a ton of times. And 2 years ago, he said, you know what? I got a ranch outside of Provost. I'm retiring from going to the US. I'm going to stay home. I'm not going to go to the NFR anymore. And this year he won so much money on Canadian soil in places like Regina, places like Kennedy, Saskatchewan, to make the NFR by staying in Canada. And that's how he made it to Vegas this year. His intention was not to go back. And now he's in the go around winner's circle last night. And he's already won almost $70,000 US. So I heard a quote last night on the NFR broadcast that said some of the Bulldoggers wished he would have stayed retired because here he is taking all their money.
Yeah, he's stealing paychecks down in the States, and those are some nice paychecks. Dustin Edwards is joining us on the All New SportsCage. Dustin is a retired rodeo performer, and now he's a rodeo announcer and a bull riding announcer. So last night in team roping, Brenton Hall and Caden Profili, 3.5 seconds quick. They each pick up the 33,687. The average leaders are Clay Smith and Colby Payne. They're 48-8 on Six Head. Now, keep in mind, team roping wasn't always one of the traditional rodeo sports that you would see. It's been added in, and now you think, how did they not always have this? Because this is one of the truest rodeo events out there. And when you see this, to me, this is one of the hardest, because there's obviously a lot of variables, but this is a 3 variable. It's 2 humans and an animal, and it all has to go right in a short amount of time for you to get even $1, let alone to pick up first place in 3.5 seconds.
That is fast. And you're right. There's so many variables. Both competitors have to do everything just right. Now, for people that aren't familiar with rodeo and say, what is the point of us roping this steer and tightening our ropes? Well, when you're out on the range doctoring cattle back in the day, or even now out in the wide open Saskatchewan and Alberta prairies, you need 2 guys to rope them. You stretch out those ropes. That's how they can hold an animal tight to administer medicine. So now they said, who can do it the fastest in rodeo? Well, 3.5 seconds. Last night, that run was lightning fast. The record is 3.3 seconds. And that's the NFR record that's happened, I think, 2 or 3 times now. So those guys were getting close to the record. It was their first round win. And it was a really fast run. And 3.3, I believe, is still the Canadian record. And I believe it happened at Exhibition last year in Regina. So Regina holds a place in Canadian rodeo history in the team roping. No Canadians made it this year. We had a couple that were really close. Remember the Graham brothers? They were at Exhibition. They just missed it by a few $1,000. So no Canadians, but 2 young guns last night got the round win.
Saddle bronc riding last night. Statler Wright, 87.5 points on, I love the name, on Jessica Rabbit. And if you saw it, that's a nasty horse, and that was a good ride.
Yeah, that was a really good ride.
And you talk about, because everybody thinks, oh, bull riding. Like, yeah, bull riding, yes, it's its own thing. But these guys that are doing saddle bronc and then the bareback or whatever, I mean, those animals are wild. And you just see that when you just see, and if you've ever been up close, and a lot of people haven't, but if you're ever up close to the animal and you see the width from the front, you're like, and to get on that, and it doesn't want that saddle there, you're like, okay. So your average leader, Wyatt Casper, 6 head, 513, tie down roping. Help me with this. Haven Megid. Okay, 6.9 seconds was the top score last night. Riley Mason Webb, 46 seconds on 6 head. All right, so let's go back to when we were watching. I was watching this on TV. Calgary Stampede barrel racing. 16 seconds, 17 seconds. That was kind of where the money. Last night, Cassie Mowry, 13.25 seconds to win, which was incredible when you see that run.
Yeah, it was a really good run. Now, I will preface that the size of the pattern that you see at Calgary at the outdoor is actually larger than the 3-barrel pattern here. But she put together a great run. She's got a couple round wins right now. She actually knocked a barrel the first night. So when you were earlier talking about the average or the aggregate over 10 rounds, if you win the aggregate at the end, it pays over $80,000 towards the world championship race. So what makes it interesting for her is with a knockdown barrel, she has to go out here and win the go-round money, that $33,000. She's got a really cool story. Her horse is named Jarvis. He's really cool. Haley Kinzel is a world champion, I think 4 times over now. She's kind of right in the conversation. So the barrel racing, fan favorite. The crowd loves it. But Cassie Mowry has been laying it down, and she has been good. The run last night is the fastest run of the entire week so far in Las Vegas. It's been good.
And when you mentioned Haley Kinsell, she's like the Connor McDavid when it comes to barrel racing. If there's parents out there with young ladies that are barrel racers, they know who Haley Kinsell is. Like you don't not know who she is, because not only is she good at what she does, everybody's good on social media these days. Everybody's very accessible, and they're out there. And that's just something from like the old days you just wouldn't see anymore. We'll get to one of my favorite guys. All right, and then the bull riding. To say that Josh Frost has kind of been, speaking of the Connor McDavid's been dominant, I think could be an understatement. Last night, 90 points on Surprised to win the money. He's the average leader for money. He's been on 5 heads. Is this his 4th year now of over $350,000 in earnings in a row? Like this guy, he's just next level, and there's nobody touching him these days.
Yeah, and the story about Josh is that the last 3 years in a row, he was the runner-up to the world title. So he has been second place 3 years in a row. And if this year you can't tell that has lit a fire, you're not looking close enough, because he's bucked off only 1 bull. And at the NFR, this event is the roughest and toughest on the Cowboys. For you to only buck off 1 through 6 rounds is really impressive. And not only that, put up 90-point rides. There's going to have to be a cement truck run this guy over on the strip or something in order for him not to win this world title. He's riding as good as ever. and he wants to get his first title. He's been second place too many times, so he's making it fun to watch.
We're on the Western Pizza guest hotline here. We're talking National Finals Rodeo with Dustin Edwards. What are some of the good Canadian stories in Vegas this week? Like what's happening down there, or kind of like what do you know, or who, if we are going to be watching later on tonight, and I have it, it's on the rodeo channel on my cable package, just like a lot of people, and you can check it out. What are you hearing, or who should we have our eyes out for?
Well, without a doubt, and we didn't really talk too much about it in the saddle bronc riding, but 5 of the 15 in the saddle bronc riding are Canadians, and obviously with a perennial favorite there is Zeke Thurston. We grew up together in the small town of Big Valley. He's a 4-time world champion. He's trying to win 3 world titles. He's sitting 3rd right now, so he's really close. Keep watching for him. He's placed in all but 1 round so far, I think. Won 2 of the first 3 go rounds. But in that saddle bronc riding, you've got the 2 brothers, Logan and Dawson Hay. They're competing.
Yeah, Logan
with
and Dawson
other.
Hay from Wildwood, Alberta. You got Colby Walchuk from Sherwood Park, and you got Ben Anderson from Eckville, and you got Leighton Green from Millerville. I mean, Lucas Matcha from High River. It's Matcha, right? That's how we say it.
Moxa
from High River. Dawson Dom from Tomahawk, Alberta. Like, you got guys from all over the place. And that's why I think that maybe a lot of people wouldn't understand just how dominant we are at times when it comes to rodeo south of the border, especially when the big money is on the line. And that's what makes this so exciting.
Yeah, it's super cool. And you referenced those 4 or 5 guys who just barely didn't make it down to Vegas. We could easily have 10 out of the 15 be Canadians at the NFR. So I think the saddle bronc riding right now in Canada is the best it's ever been in the history of the sport. And that's, no disrespect to the legends who have been there. Dawson and Logan's dad and uncle both competed at the NFR at the same time. When you talk about Rod and Denny Hay in that era and Glenn O'Neill. But I mean, these guys are down there and they're winning big, big money. We're talking getting into the $250,000 US mark when these guys all leave Las Vegas, and Zeke, he's going to be closing in on $350,000 US in prize money. So these guys are down there. They're not only just competing, they are winning. So yeah, as far as Canadian stories there, I love bragging on the Cowboys. There's also a ton of Canadian bucking horses and bulls down there. They've won the go round in the tie down roping, I think twice now on a Canadian horse from Alberta named Peso. Joel Harris, he won the go round 2 nights ago on that horse. We've also got the horse that Scott Gunther won the steer wrestling on last night, is a horse that comes from Alberta named Eddie, owned by the Mylan. So not only the 2-legged superstars, but there's a lot of great Canadian 4-legged superstars. The Calgary Stampede stock has a ton of great bucking horses down there. So yeah, there's just so many Canadian connections at the NFR. It's hard not to be dialed in for 10 straight nights. Okay, so I'm going to have a question for you here in just a sec. And if you went down just as a casual fan to kick things off on Saturday, it was Chris Stapleton and George Strait at Allegiant Stadium to get things rolling. And then did you see George Strait do the Trump dance at the end or whatever? He didn't say anything, but he did a little Trump dance at the end or whatever. And George Strait, he does the odd show here and there. He doesn't necessarily tour full time anymore, but that was a great way to kick off. I mean, it's NFR. It's the biggest rodeo in the world. So of course they're going to do it right. Now I want to ask you about favorites. My favorite rodeo person over the past few years, and it's because of social media and being able to consume a lot of them, is JB Mooney. A bull rider, like an old school. And we've talked about him on the show, that when he would come on, and it's Bob Tallman, the rodeo announcer, correct? The world famous, right. The voice. Yeah. So when he would come on and say the $1 million bull rider, and they play Bad to the Bone by George Thorogood, and then it would be the $2 million bull rider and up to the 7. JB Mooney is such a personality that I hope that the sport continues to have evolutions of JB Mooney, because to me, he brought just a very casual rodeo person in tight to the sport because of who he is. Who is your JB Mooney? Well, I think we talked about at the start of the show. Rocker Steiner is for sure the next piece of that puzzle when you talk about edgy, creating new fans. I think he's the guy right now that non-rodeo fans or non-traditional rodeo fans are putting some attention on, and he's drawing attention to the sport. Rocker's doing for rodeo right now what JB did for bull riding and rodeo, and then what Rocker's dad did before that. So you're right. JB Mooney, what he is, if you've never met him, he's quite the character. He makes time for everybody. He's edgy, says what is on his mind, but he backed it up with being one of the best bull riders of all time, and he could ride. So for me right now, it's Rocker Steiner. He's the guy. He's it at 20 years old.
And if you are going to look up who this JB Mooney character is, if you see a guy who's like kind of wiry and skinny, like a lot of bull riders, and he's smoking a cigarette, you found the right video. Because JB Mooney, if he likes bull riding, he likes smoking cigarettes just as much, and he's got a pretty good podcast as well.
If they would have let him ride with a dart in his mouth, he would have done it. And keep in mind, he's the only bull rider and world champion who said he never went to the gym, he never worked out. He weighed the same from grade 12 till 35 years old and was just a natural talent.
And trust me, when he goes through his list of injuries to see what he did and would still compete to go win money because it was a code and it was an honor with him, I think that's something that you don't see anymore. Dustin, this has been great. It's the National Finals Rodeo. So tonight it's night number 7. And there's 10 nights of this, and then all of the big money and everything is going to be handed out. Thanks for making time for us. We appreciate it. Dustin, if people want to follow you on Twitter, what's your Twitter handle?
You can find me at Dusty Trails 8. I'm on there, and I always share my stories from the rodeo road.
Yeah, what's your podcast?
Well, I'm going to say cowboy stuff.
Okay.
But I'll leave it to your imagination that it might be a word that's a little referencing stuff and a little cowboy, but you can find the link to our podcast. And JB Mooney's been a former guest, a fun show to listen to. You can find it all on my Twitter and Instagram as well.
All right, Dustin, we appreciate it. All right, we're going to take a break here on the All New SportsCage. We're going to come back, and Eric Francis is set to join the show after 4 o'clock. And when we get back, we'll talk some Western Hockey League here on the All New SportsCage. If you're listening on 620 CKRM, or if you're watching the stream at sportscage.com, thanks. Hit that like and hit that subscribe button. Hey, thanks for being part of the show. If you want to get at us, you can on the Capital Ford Lincoln text line 306-936-6262. Capital Ford Lincoln, Saskatchewan's #1 Ford retailer. That's also where you can vote for the Christmas song bracket challenge. Today, Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You, Colson, and we're up against, it's Brenda Lee, Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. Is that it? Is that what those are the songs we're voting for today, the choices?
Yeah. Rocking Around the Christmas Tree versus All I Want for Christmas. And Mary's Boy Child versus Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer.
So Boney M against the Irish Rovers.
Yeah. Or whatever version of it you want.
Well, no, the best version of Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer is the Irish Rovers. Grandma got run over by a reindeer coming home from our house Christmas Eve.
The one that got posted was by Elmo and Patsy, but I think they wrote it first. So, but yeah, those are what are up.
Elmo and Pat, like Elmo, like the Sesame Street character, or is there some other dude named Elmo that I'm not? Okay. I saw somewhere today that Mariah Carey makes over $3 million every year in the holiday season just for the royalties from that song.
I believe that.
And she didn't write it, just from what she plays. And Mariah Carey, she's always been nuts. Even when she was in the 90s, when she first came out, she's worth over $350 million. And she was married to that Nick Cannon guy and has a couple of kids. Could you bring up my song that I want to put in this Christmas bracket challenge? I think since it's the holidays. So if you missed this earlier to start the show, this is Creed singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose.
How do we not have this in the bracket challenge? Like, there's got to be some duds in there that we can knock out to put this in.
You had to come in on Monday.
You would even say it low.
Is there any better vocalist in music than Scott Stapp?
of the
Now, for a long time there, Creed
used to laugh
was taking it on the chin. Creed used to be the band that everybody would make fun of. I think even before Nickelback, Creed was the band that everybody used to take shots at. And then eventually it went away, and now people really appreciate Creed. Same with Nickelback. Now people kind of appreciate Nickelback. They're not the punching bag or the punchline to jokes anymore. But I'm sorry, if you're at the gym and over the sound system through the Muzak or whatever comes on, when the song Higher by Creed comes on, you look around. Everybody is low-key singing when that chorus hits under their breath. Whether they know Creed or not, or whether they're a fan, they're into it. Because you just
everyone's
love that
singing
song.
under their breath. There's some people that are belting it out full volume.
I know. That would be me. I'm out loud. I was never a Creed hater. I was never a Nickelback hater. And the thing is that I never got about the Nickelback thing. With them being Canadian, and we have this complex, they can go around the world and sell out arenas and stadiums on their own. They don't need to be propped up by any government regulations of we need to play. Because in Canada, if you don't know this, this is not inside. Canadian radio stations have to play it's either 30 or 40% Canadian music to keep your license. You just do. Those guys don't need that. They're good enough on their own. They can just, so why anybody would ever be against them when they can do it on their own? And is it on Amazon or is it on Netflix? The Nickelback documentary where it talks about how they went through all of this. And now it's kind of on the other side where people appreciate them. And Chad Kroeger is a great guy. And I remember this would have been about 10 years ago, before one of their shows, getting a chance to meet them. And all four guys, normally in a meet and greet situation, if it's a band, there's one of them, never all of them. They all stood there. And when you walked up and they said, "This is your name," they all called you by name and shook hands. It couldn't be nicer to me all day long. So if you want to vote for the Christmas Bracket Challenge, fire in a text, or you can go on Twitter, right?
Yeah, those are our two options. And the Hate to Love Nickelback documentary is on Netflix.
That's what it's called, Hate to Love?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take... Oh, speaking of Christmas carols, tomorrow night at Connexus Arts Center, Johnny Reed is in town with his Christmas with Johnny Reed show. He's a crooner. He, for whatever reason, he's one of those guys. I've always just been a huge fan. I think there's still a couple of tickets left, so that should be a good show. All right, time for a quick break. When we come back, a little Western Hockey League talk, and then we'll do a little AAA. There's a big game going down for first place tonight. We'll get to that next. It's the All New SportsCage, brought to you by Regina Motor Products on 620 CKRM. Thanks for being part of the show today. If you want to get in on us at any time, you can always text us, Capital Ford Lincoln text line 306-936-6262. It's Wednesday, December 11th. We're 2 weeks away from Christmas, and it's week 4 of the postal strike. And I know a lot of people this has affected. Colson, Alan, I don't know how it's affected you. So I know for one piece of mail I'm waiting on is we rented a condo in the summertime for vacation, and the guy has never returned the damage deposit. And when I finally got a hold of him, he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry, it got lost in, it got misplaced or whatever. I threw it in the mail." And I'm like, so
waiting on
that's that. And then I was reading online today, there's a lot of people that, because passports get delivered by mail, a lot of people have trips booked and there's no mail. So now there's panic in the streets at passport offices, not only in Regina and across Saskatchewan, but all across the country. People are like, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah, I saw one of those on X today. Somebody's got a trip in 10 days and they've been waiting for 3 weeks on their passport.
Yeah.
I haven't.
And what is it?
Personally, but yeah.
And Alan's waiting on a credit card?
Yeah. I just saw them when I was logging in. It said I had a new credit card, but it never showed up. And then they said, "Oh, it's in the mail." Oh, I was like, okay. Oh, darn. It's going to be a while.
I think I just realized what I am waiting on. I got a new license because I moved a couple months ago and I forgot to update it.
Oh,
but
see,
yeah,
Colson. Now, keep in mind, Colson, I'm not a cop, but if I'm a cop, and because this has happened to me before. Oh, is this not your current address, sir? Do you know that that's a violation? You don't know. That's not. You don't have the proper ID. So, and I remember this being like, well, hold on a sec. Like, there's in the old days, they could be nice to you, and if you produced it within 24 hours, they would tear up the ticket, but I've seen it go the other way. I remember leaving work one night in the dark, and I got pulled over because I had a headlight out. And I said, well, when I drove here, I think it was working. I said, can I have a chance to, it was 11 o'clock at night. I said, there's no place open. I can't fix it right. And it doesn't matter. And I got a ticket. I'm like, really? Come on.
I think they're better at that now because I've been hit by that. And you're like, depending on the situation, they'll just give you a warning. But yeah. And I almost had the license thing bite me because it was during the elections. But I went and voted with my wife. And so she could vouch for me because that's an option. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So, hey, you know what? Yeah, you're not, if you are one of those people that is waiting on something like a passport to go on a vacation that you booked, and you're like, travel insurance, we don't need no stinking travel insurance. I'm not paying an extra $600. Why would we need that? This is maybe one of the reasons why. And I wonder what they're going to do, because that's the thing. Maybe they let you leave the country. It's the coming back home that'll be a real problem with your expired passport. But this is real. So I know a lot of people that are going to pit in at the passport offices and try and do what they can. And I know that sometimes when, you can get a passport fast, but when there's thousands of people probably waiting on, these documents, I don't necessarily know how fast you can go. Was this verified? The Saskatoon Blades lost last night in Medicine Hat to the Tigers. That's the first time the Blades lost in Medicine Hat in 5 years. Is that the story? That's crazy.
I heard, yeah.
Yeah. There's 3 games in the Western Hockey League tonight. The Blades are in Lethbridge to take on the Hurricanes, the powerhouse Hurricanes, after the big blockbuster trades. With Moose Jaw, though, with World Junior stuff and guys away at camp. Prince George is at Tri-City. Portland is Everett. Those same Saskatoon Blades will be here on Friday nights to play the Pats. We'll have that for you. Pre-game show at 6:30, play-by-play at 7 right here on 620 CKRM. And with that World Junior training camp roster not only released, but now that camp has started, I was watching some of the interviews yesterday, and correct me if I'm wrong. Should the goal not be it's gold medal win or nothing? This whole, we need a better showing than last year, we need to competitive. It should be like, we're in this to win the gold and nothing else. Like, we're not Latvia where we're like, well, we're just hoping to get to the relegation round. That kind of concerned me from David Cameron and even some of the players, that it's not like we have one goal and it's a gold medal. Am I wrong in hearing that? Is that complacency as a Canadian hockey fan, or should that just be the goal?
I would agree with you. I think that should be our goal no matter what. I think we're also just more aware that the Americans and the Russians and the Swedes and the Finns are catching up. But yeah, I think we're still the best hockey players, and we should be going for gold every year.
Well, yeah, sure. And I get it. Maybe with the 4 nations thing, we don't know how that's going to play out. But when it comes to the World Junior, because we've won it so many times, and we did with the amount of talent that we have in this country, and that was the shocking things when I didn't hear it come out of their mouths. I'm like, hold on a sec. We needed to reset our priorities. There's a big game in town tonight. Some AAA hockey action. The Regina Pack Canadians are taking on Moose Jaw. 7 o'clock face-off at the Cooperators. The Patsies are in first place by 1 point. All right, we're going to take a break. Still to come on the All New SportsCage. Tim Peel, retired NHL referee, will join us after 5 o'clock, but in minutes, we're going to go inside the NFL, inside the NHL with Eric Francis from Sportsnet, right here on the All New SportsCage. Welcome back. It's hour 2 of the show. It's the All New SportsCage. Maz McFly filling in. Barney will be back tomorrow. Don't forget that you can book your holiday party at the Canadian Brewhouse today, your ultimate destination for events, parties, fundraisers, and more. 'Tis the season to celebrate. Book now, in-store, or at thecanadianbrewhouse.com. In an hour's time, we're going to have retired NHL referee Tim Peel join the Sports Cage. Tim is part of the Snipes and Stripes podcast that he does with Jeremy Roenick. Going to ask him about some stuff, and he interviewed Theron Fleury last week on his show, and it got a lot of attention on social media. If you haven't had a chance to check that out. If you missed any part of the show so far, and we want to thank Dustin Roberts for coming on, talking about the NFR in Vegas. You can always catch the podcast of the All New SportsCage at SportsCage.com. All right, it's time to go inside the NHL with Eric Francis from Sportsnet.
It's time to talk hockey on the all-new Sports Cage with NHL analyst Eric Francis. Brought to you by South A Mainline, the Mainline Automotive Group's newest king of trucks. South A Mainline, just 30 minutes north of Regina. Worth the drive every time, guaranteed.
All right, Eric, before we get to the hard-hitting stuff, we started this Christmas song bracket challenge. It was yesterday we launched this, so there's like a million different songs. You're supposed to vote, but then Glenn Suter came on, and he wanted to vote for a song that's not even in the bracket. So I'm like, well, if Suits is doing this. I found this gem. Colson, fire away. Eric, I want your initial raw reaction. You're Simon Cowell. This is American Idol. I want your initial raw reaction to this song right here.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose.
Does it get better than Creed singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Like,
You would even say it's
Not bad.
sorry, Brenda Lee rocking around the Christmas tree, but you've got competition or whatever. So apparently that's not getting in the bracket today. You can vote for things like Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You, which we've all heard a million times. It's up against Brenda Lee rocking around the Christmas tree. And you can vote on the Capital Ford Lincoln text line, 306-936-6262. Are you guys festive around your house? Like, will you put on Christmas carols when you, like, in the background when you're doing stuff, whether just working around the house or decorating or Christmas thing?
Absolutely. You know what? Even in my car, we got a station here in Calgary that plays nothing but Christmas carols for like 2 months before Christmas, and I got to be honest, I'm glued to it. You know, it takes your mind off all the other garbage going on in your life, right? I mean, it's just it forces you to get into a better spirit. So I got no problem with it. Let me ask you this: when you look at the bracket, I suggested Blue Christmas by Elvis. Did it make the cut or no?
Colson, did it make the cut? And if it didn't, why not?
I'm pretty sure it's on there. Hold on.
Okay.
Yep.
Because
It'll be
because
going
if we
up
were to,
against to get last Christmas.
yeah. Because if we were to go to my mom's house if we were to go to my mom's house in Saskatoon in the basement, in the wooden record player, which also has the radio component, there's still 8 tracks in there and albums. And Elvis Blue Christmas will be on one of those albums. And that is a fine song. And it's funny you mentioned this. I worked at a radio station that did the Christmas thing, and you do it for a month. It was a refreshing change as a DJ, as if you're a music DJ, from all the other garbage you play for the other 11 months. It was a real nice treat. Some people think, don't you get tired? It's like, well, no, because all the songs are usually kind of fun and happy and uplifting, and you don't, and they're like 2.5 minutes long, so you don't ever get caught up in, except there's that one Boney M song that's about 5 minutes. But other than that, you're in, you're out.
Yeah,
and
what it's forced the world to come up with, like that Creed version you just played. Like, you'd think that, like maybe 15, 20 years ago, we were stuck with the same like it would have been unfathomable 15 years ago, 20 years ago, for a radio station to play nothing but Christmas carols, because there were the same 20, Bing
Yes.
Crosby's White Christmas. There, you know what I mean? Like all the staples that are still in your mom's 8-track cassette player. But now, every pop star worth their name is jumping in there. And look at a guy like Michael Bublé. He's brought in a whole new catalog all by himself, right? So there's lots of options out there.
And if you're a musician, especially one that's getting started, and you have any kind of traction, like your management company be like, you're going to do a Christmas album because it's automatic guaranteed sales. You sing those same 10 songs that everybody else has sung. But I think one of the best, and I read this today, Mariah Carey every year makes at least $3 million off All I Want for Christmas Is You. And that sort of kept her relevant because she was big in the 90s, and then she went away for a while, and then that song exploded, what, about 10, 15 years ago? And now it's nothing but easy street for her when it comes to the holidays.
And she's built an empire around it, a second empire, because she now tours all over the world based on that song. It's just Christmas shows. Every day for 2 months leading into Christmas, she's playing somewhere in North America or the world, bringing Christmas cheer based largely on everybody being there for the one song they're all waiting for at the very end, which is her signature song. So good for her. It's an industry.
All right, let's talk hockey for Southie Mainline Chrysler, King of Trucks, Eric Francis. He's joined the All New SportsCage on Mondays and Wednesdays at this time. So last night, the Calgary Flames, who needed a win, were up against a team that needed a win, I thought, more desperately than anybody else, with a coach on the hot seat, Andrew Burnett, in the Nashville Predators. And in watching that game, and I watched most of it, it almost doesn't make sense how Nashville can have that much talent and that little result.
Yeah, it's eerily similar to the New York Rangers, isn't it? Where you've got all this talent and going to the season. Look, the Rangers went into the season a bigger favorite than Nashville, but Nashville probably went into the season with the most heightened expectations of all the teams after what they did in the summer with Marchessault and adding Stamkos. So it was in the Flames, from the view of the Flames, it was a much-needed win. They'd lost 8 in a row on the road and had gone 25 games in a row without scoring more than 3 goals. To finally crack that barrier last night, that leaves – so they had 25 games in a row without more than 3. Second place on that list, the Nashville Predators, who are now at 8 games in a row without scoring 3 or more. Like, that's an incredibly obscure but incredibly significant record when you look at, it's important to kind of score goals. It's kind of half of what you have to do to win games. Luckily for the Flames, they're good at keeping it out of their net, but until they start to figure out how to score more, they're going to slowly continue to fade out of this playoff race. Certainly by the new year, they'll really start to feel it. Now, they are home for their next 5 games, and they have one of the best home records in the league, so it'll be interesting to see what the Flames can do. But going back to Nashville, I don't think there's much question that they're going to have to do something soon. Like, if I hate to think of anybody getting fired just before Christmas. In fact, a lot of companies have a moratorium on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know.
The
That
NHL
would be awful.
Part of that. But, these guys' money is guaranteed. And I think Andrew Burnett would probably be the least shocked of anybody if he does finally get the axe. And my guess would be then that Barry Trotz would probably take over behind the bench himself, on an interim basis, and we'll see where it went. But soon something's got to give, because not only are they not winning, but in a lot of nights they're not even coming close.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. There was a quote put up on the screen before the game from Jonathan Marchessault talking about how from night to night, he doesn't know who his line mates are, or something to that effect, where he's played with so many different combinations of guys. And you're like, because at the start of the season, all you heard from Marchessault was just there was the shots and the bitterness towards Vegas. But hey, Nashville, it's going to be great. Team, high power, roster, all of that. Where now it looks like, no, he's got nothing to do with Vegas now. That there's the management of the roster and how it's played out seems to be the big thing. And then you forget they have Steven Stamkos and you see Saros in goal. I said it's mind-boggling. It just doesn't make sense how they just can't put it all together.
No, it is quite stunning. I mean, and to make matters worse, Roman Josi left the game in the first period last night and did not return the rest of the night. Like, he is their most important player. I don't care who you've added up front. He stabilizes one of the best blue lines in the league over the last 6, 7, 8 years. And if he's gone for any length of time, that might be your ultimate sign that it's time to start to take a little bit different tact as you move forward, because they don't get any bigger than that.
So last night, the Edmonton Oilers beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 2-1. So then I was on my phone and I checked the standings at the season we're in today. With the wild card, the Oilers are in. They're just barely in. Same with the on the flip side with Tampa. So, and everybody made a lot about Edmonton starts and how they slowly Is that basically what do you think we're going to get from the Oilers, is just kind of, they'll slowly just kind of middle and creep their way up if they get, I don't necessarily know if they're ever going to get to the top of the division, but they're just going to kind of middle their way in. And are they okay with that, keeping the spotlight off themselves?
Well, I'll put it. I'll be very surprised if they don't win the division. Like I'll go that far. I know they had a bad start, but I don't think anybody in Edmonton was worried. As a matter of fact, I was having a good long chat with someone in Edmonton today who covers the team, Mark Spector, and to me, they've won 5 of their last 6. I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, of course they have. Like, they'll quietly go about just doing that, and suddenly people in Toronto who kind of saw their rough start will go, oh my God, look at that. The Oilers are 2 points out of leading the Pacific. I mean, they were in last place at one point. So, look, they're clawing back into this race to the point where I think, like you said, I think they're in a playoff spot right now, or right there. Yep. And Zach Hyman hasn't even got started yet. Like, that's a 50-goal scorer from last year, and he's been horrific this year. Now he's going to continue to stay on a line. Now he's back from injury. I think he's got 3 goals his last 2 games. Like, just watch. Just if you have a pool and you have a chance to pick it up, Zach Hyman, please do so quickly, because him and so many of those other guys are just about to take fire. I really believe that. That's a team that should be in the Stanley Cup final again this year. I know that that's a bold statement given how many good teams there are in the West, but given how close they came last year and the experience they gleaned from it, no one should be surprised that the Oilers are doing what they're doing now, or if by the end of the year everyone's picking them again to win the Cup.
South A Mainline Chrysler, the king of trucks. It's worth the drive every time, guaranteed. It's Eric Francis inside the NHL. We do it Mondays and Wednesdays here on the All New SportsCage. Washington Capitals still surprising everybody with their... What the hell happened to Tom Wilson's face? Like, did he get hit with the puck where his cheek had bulged out like that? Did he block a shot with his face? Because, God, that looked painful.
So painful. And he stays in the game, and he scores 2 goals in that game. That's one of the great interviews we've seen all year long, basically saying, my dad always said, if you can still play, you keep playing. I mean, the guy looks like a chipmunk right now. It is fantastic. He's a poster boy for hockey in a lot of ways. And, he is kind of symbolic of the resiliency of that team right now in Washington. Nobody thought they could do anything this year. They've got this Alexi Protas I'm a big fan of right now. He's 6'8", just a monster out there, and he's got the hands of a 5'8" guy. And, guys like Andrew Mangiapane, who they brought in thinking that he would play on the first line, has been like a third-line stalwart, playing a really solid role in the third line. But, like, Connor McMichael, like, they've got some depth there that I don't think people thought they had. Dylan Strome is having a great season as well, one of the big leaders there. And then, of course, their backhand, John Carlson. It's just a really, really good team. And Jacob Chikrin's been a great, great addition. I could just keep going on with all these guys. And they've even got a good tandem in net that I don't think anybody thought was going to be all that good with Logan Thompson and Darcy Kemper. So everything seems to be coming together with them. I won't be surprised if they kind of settle down a little and stop the pace that they're at right now, because I don't think they can continue it. But man, good on them to do this all, especially of late, without Alex Ovechkin. In fact, they've kept their pace up, even though he's out of the lineup. And he's skating again. People have heard this already, so don't be surprised if the grade 8 returns to your TV even closer than you think.
The Russian gas. And here's the flip side. So you got Tom Wilson blocking shots with his face, and that's the ultimate toughness, because he's a tough guy in a tough guy sport. And then you have the New York Rangers, who have been accused of being too soft. And then they get rid of Jacob Trouba, the Trouba train, one of the guys who actually would play physical. He was the only intimidating guy out there, and they got rid of him. And I guess, it all stems back to the summer and the trade and the not trade, and he's gone, and he's now an Anaheim Duck. Yes, they signed Shesterkin, and he is the best player on their team by far. But if you're the Rangers, you weren't a physically intimidating team to begin with. We saw that in the playoffs, and you get rid of one of the few tough guys you had. So does that mean Matt Rempe should be called up and stay up with the team for the rest of the season, just even if he's sitting on the bench, just for the threat of, the Rangers could do something? Because they don't have anybody else.
Look, their record with him in the lineup is ridiculous. Like, this guy's inspiring. The crowd loves him. The teammates love him. Look, he's one-dimensional. He can fight and add a little bit of intimidation, which in today's game, unfortunately, is not that big a part of the game anymore. But I'm with you. You're looking at ways to try and shake this up. You've already done that by throwing all these salvos into the media by saying you're going to trade Trouba and Kreider. I'm not sure what that accomplished other than bad PR and bad feelings, because Kreider's still on the team. Even if you do want to trade him, why would you throw that out there that you're going to trade him? And then I like the Rempire State. Not only is it one of the best nicknames in the NHL, but I love what he does. He's fearless, and he inspires a team that right now is leaderless. They would probably argue that they were leaderless before, and that's why they traded their captain, Jacob Trouba. Surely they're going to name a new captain soon. I'm assuming it's going to be Panarin, but who knows? And now you can have a new captain, and you can bring in Rempe to kind of shake things up too. So they're doing anything they can to try and shake it up. I think that one's an easy one.
Well, Mika Zibanejad, he's 31 years old. He's never been the best skater, and his production has really fallen off, especially when it comes to the goal scoring. And it's amazing when you can do remember Chris Kontos?
Yeah.
Would disappear. You didn't even know he played regular season hockey, but then he had a couple of really good playoffs and all the Chris Kontos, the goal scorer. He's all of this. That's Mika Zibanejad. Yeah, it's great in the playoffs when there's a little bit of a spotlight and a microscope in a short series, and you can do that. But you're just seeing how it's just not working, and it's just not playing out for them. And it's funny. I don't know where they go from there, but it is the Rangers. They got more money than they know what to do with or whatever, and bad PR. It's so funny. I mean, with Juan Soto signing for $765 million, the Rangers probably get a little less space in the post and stuff like that, because although they're important, there's still other things that may dominate the market. So last night, you probably saw this. Winnipeg Jets beat the Boston Bruins 8-1. And then it was time to goon it up. And was it Trent Frederick that went after Gustafsson, who's not a fighter, which I'm like, I don't care in what era of hockey we're in. Fighters should fight fighters, okay? Or somebody in your weight class. And then it just didn't go down that way. And then the coaches were going, Sacco and Arneal were across the bench there at each other. Boston's already fired their coach. What are they going to do now? Because it's not getting better. Because Monty wasn't the problem.
And look, Trent Frederick is doing the best thing he can do to try and spur them on, right? These are the kind of things we were talking about with Rempe, inspiring a team and turning it around. You're getting killed 8-1. Why not just start dropping the gloves and fighting guys? But you want to make a bigger statement, you fight Logan Stanley, who's 6'7".
Yes.
Or you fight Adam Lowry. I'm not sure it's a smart thing to do health-wise, but if you want to really make a statement, that's what you can do. So, yeah, they're taking a lot of heat for dropping the gloves with Gustafsson, and Gustafsson got hurt in the fight, too. It's not good, right? Nobody wants to see that. So the Jets are furious about it. They didn't like the way he went about it. And, I want to make sure I watch that game when they play again, those two teams. But yes, in Boston, it is a mess right now. They're running out of different things they can do to try and motivate the troops. Maybe, just maybe, they're not that good anymore. I mean, look, for many, many years, we knew that the time was running out for this team. And for many, many years, they could always count on Bergeron and Chara. No matter what happened, those two guys were on the ice like 60% of the time. Now, with those two guys being gone for quite some time now, they've had a hell of a time trying to replace them. In Boston, they tried to replace them with Elias Lindholm. We in Calgary could have told you that wasn't going to work very well. And then, if you think the big Russian Zadorov is going to replace the shoes of Chara, boy, you had another thing coming too. So those are poor man versions of those two superstars. I think any organization would miss, would be altered significantly with those two guys leaving. And I think they've had a hard time really, putting the pieces together ever since.
One of the things I love about Nikita Zadorov, he is like a poor man's Ilya Brizgalov, because you don't see many foreign players with personality that are a little nutso and crazy that are willing to just be out there or not. That's why I truly appreciate them and sometimes the honesty. But here's the thing about the Bruins, before everyone, they're still in third place and they're still in a playoff spot. So if they can manage to hang on, but I don't know what they're going to do, but it just shows that There's a lot of other garbage teams in that Eastern Conference that to be like, listen, if there's a team that's right for the picking, it would be the Bruins. The Four Nations Cup rosters were released last week. I know there was a lot of Oiler fans complaining, Zach Hyman, who you had just said a few minutes earlier, hasn't really got going this year. There's enough other dudes on the roster to play with Connor McDavid. Okay, that'll be okay. But on the American side, and this is a good one, Tage Thompson. People are saying, and whether you agree or disagree, if he played in a bigger market, bigger than Buffalo, which doesn't get a lot of coverage, would he be on the team if he played for, let's say, the Rangers or the Capitals in a real media market where he could get exposure?
Potentially. I'm a big fan of this guy, and the season he put together 2 years ago was off the charts. But, last year he wasn't that good. And this year he hasn't been off to a great start. He's had some injury issues. I don't have a problem with, I don't think it was necessarily just because he plays in a small market. I think it's because he hasn't had a great start to the season that there were detractors out there who didn't think he belonged on the team. So I don't have a problem with him being overlooked, and I don't think it's just because he's with Buffalo. I think it's because there's so many different options. And again, it's not just an all-star team, right? It's not like he plays with a ton of moxie and grit. They've got enough scorers, and God knows the Americans are stacked more than maybe any team I've ever seen internationally on paper. We'll see how it translates, but you need that balance of skill, moxie, leadership, sacrifice. And I'd like to think that they're also pretty hungry too, because they've only won once on the international stage, really, in these sort of competitions. And I think they're due to win a whole bunch of them. It scares me to say that. I hate saying that, but I've been fearing it for 20, 30 years because it's only a matter of time, numbers-wise, before they overtake our country and hockey players and programs. So this might be their time. This might be the turning point. And I don't think they needed Tage Thompson to do it. I can tell you that.
So I heard this the other day. 2 tickets for that game at the Bell Center. Canada versus the States, $5,700 roughly. Now, are you going to be there covering it? Do you know, do you have your assignment already? Are you actually going to be there that night covering that game?
I will be there. And it's funny because I just want to tell you, I looked into tickets before they went on sale to the general public. I had access to them, and tickets for the Canada-US game, first row balcony, were $1,000. That's before the scalpers got a hold of them. So now you're telling me that they're $5,700 for some tickets. I believe it
for 2.
I remember thinking, geez, who's going to pay more than $1,000 for the? To me, it's the best seat in the house. Those tickets, by the way, for the first 2 games of the tournament, Canada versus Sweden and then Finland versus America, were $400 each. So they're not messing around. The NHLPA and the NHL are working together on this one. They're doing this to make money. They're also doing it because we need best on best, and we should have been doing this for many, many years before. But they're trying to also eliminate the middleman and get rid of the scalper. Clearly, if you're telling me they're already at $5,700, they haven't succeeded. But I'm glad that they're at least getting their significant pound of flesh beforehand and eating into the scalper's profits.
Before we wrap on this subject, and I know because there's politics and other stuff, and we're not here to talk politics. You said best on best. Without a Russian team or a Czechoslovakian team or whatever, I truly don't think when you only have the 4 and you don't have the 6, that you're going to do that. But that's a different discussion, different day. Okay, let's wrap on football. Bill Belichick apparently showed up at the University of North Carolina for an interview to be the head football coach with a 400-page document of his plan how to turn Tar Heel football around. Have you ever heard anything that crazy for a job interview?
No, that is crazy. Most of us go to a job interview and try to just get the name of the guy who's going to be interviewing you, and that's never enough. But that's the Belichick way, isn't it? Right? This guy's always over the top, manic in terms of the way he works at things and studies things. Hey, I got to tell you, I know there's a lot of people who don't like Bill Belichick, and I'm not here to say I think he's a great guy and he's misunderstood. But I am going to tell you that won't it be fascinating if that's the path he takes, and they give him they say, go for it, implement your 400-page plan. What an incredible study on the power of this incredible mind that football's been blessed with for so many years. I think it'd be fun to watch. I know everyone, it's good too, because a lot of people could root against him because he wears the black hat and people don't like that guy. But I also think that there's an element to it that, like, wow, we could all learn from a guy like that, and let's see what he has to teach us.
Well, so apparently the word is that he would go there and be the head coach, and in 3 years he would turn the team over to his son Steve, who is a defensive coordinator for the University of Washington. He would then become the head coach. That's a part of this deal. But keep in mind, Belichick has access to the best college football coach who is now retired, because they used to in Nick Saban. And he would put them on the map. Like, I have it on my phone. There's teams. Where is it? I have it here. Like, the University of Texas spent $20 million, $22 million in NIL money for players this year. Ohio State, $20 million. LSU, $20 million. Georgia, $18 million. Texas A&M, $17 million. Michigan, $16 million. Did you know that most of the whole Marshall Thundering Herd all went into the transfer portal today because their head coach left Marshall to move somewhere, so they all want to move schools with him? Because that's what college football has turned into. So Belichick is saying, I'll run a pro-style program that will get your kids NFL ready to pump these kids into the NFL. I love it if he does it, because that will be the ultimate experience, the overpaying to the coaching of it all.
So I listen, this is where it got to because of the courts, right? That the athletes were finally given their freedom to choose. It'd be tough to build any sort of program because there's no loyalty anymore, right? You have a bad year or you don't like the way the coach is playing, you just get into the portal the next year and go to the rival. So it'll be harder to me to build dynasties, or what he's trying to get to. And the second thing is, out of that 400-page document, what page do you think it was on when he said, and by the way, after year 3, I'm going to hand it to my son? Was that page 399?
Just sneak that one in. And here's the crazy thing. The transfer portal is open right now, but it is also bowl season. So a lot of these schools that are talking to these kids are saying, you come here, we'll pay you this money, but you can't play in the bowl games for your school because we don't want you to get hurt, which is not really fair to anybody. All right. And then we'll wrap on this. This is kind of loosely associated to a story that you told us in the spring, that at one time or another, you owned a hot tub, or maybe you still do. So the other night, the Cincinnati Bengals were beating the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Cincinnati quarterback Joe Burrow's house was broken into in Cincinnati. The woman at his house who called the cops is a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. Her name is Olivia Ponton. She works for him. She is on Joe Burrow's personal payroll. Now, as someone in the investigative world of journalism that you are, and aquatics as a hot tub owner, do we smell a story here that this Sports Illustrated swimsuit model's at Joe Burrow's house, but it's not his girlfriend and it's an employee? Like, is there, where there's smoke, there's fire, Eric?
Well, it's a fascinating story, and it's the latest in a string of athletes who've had their house burglarized while they're on the road playing. I mean, the whole world knows they're not in town and that they're on the road. So people are capitalizing on this. The supermodel angle is not one I thought of too much. I do know that Burrow's Joe made headlines recently because he bought a Batmobile. They were selling,
and I do love that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
By the way. Well,
I think it's cooler that he's got the supermodel myself. But sure, some guys like Batman, and that's fine too. But this guy, this is the sort of thing you never see in the NHL, right? Like, they're taught from a young age to just be beige and fit right in and don't be a blowhard because you're shunned in the room your whole career if you've got a personality. We saw that with PK Subban and other guys like him. Joe Burrow buying Batmobiles and collecting supermodels, like, it just ups your status. It's amazing that we're talking about him. The whole country of America is talking about him right now for those two things as well. So, God bless America, boy. They love to make the headlines.
Hey, well, now that we're the 51st state, apparently, I read that on Twitter. Now that we're the 51st state or whatever, first of all, if no more 41 cents on the dollar exchange rate, this is great. And if Joe Burrow is going to let other nerds drive the Batmobile hey, I'm all in. Hey, it's a good thing he's got supermodels and Batmobiles because I don't think he's getting a Super Bowl ring anytime soon. Not as long as the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are still there. All right, my friend, it's Eric Francis inside the NHL for Southie Mainline Chrysler, the king of trucks. It's worth the drive every time, guaranteed. We're going to take a break here on the All New SportsCage. We're going to come back. We'll recap our Christmas bracket, and we're going to talk some Saskatchewan Rattlers basketball with Brennan Elliot. It's the All New SportsCage on 620 CKRM, and we're also streaming online at sportscage.com. Hey, thanks for being part of the show today. It's Maz McFly filling in for Barney. He'll be back in tomorrow. If you go to sportscage.com, you can read all about what Darian Durant thinks about Buck Pierce and Mark Killam's hirings in the CFL. Big news. We're going to chat a little CFL before the show is done today. And also, 3 Saskatchewan players will be on Team Canada at the Under-18 Women's Hockey Championship. SportsCage.com. All right, it's time to talk a little basketball, Canadian Elite Basketball League, the Saskatchewan Rattlers. And we're joined now by Brennan Elliot, who's part of the team. And we were chatting off air. High school basketball in Saskatchewan is probably one of the most passionate sports as far as when you're in it, you're in it. Now, whether you're a parent with a kid in it, but I remember as a kid growing up in it, going to school at Bedford Road Collegiate in Saskatoon when Brit would roll around. There was no bigger weekend and no better time for basketball in Saskatchewan. Because some people are like, there's pro basketball in Saskatchewan. Yes, there's pro basketball in Saskatchewan. It's because of the passionate fan base. Now, Brennan, you said you're a Saskatoon born and raised guy. Any experience with the Bedford Road Invitational Tournament in your basketball career growing up?
Yeah, I mean, like as a player, I did play high school basketball, but I didn't end up. I don't think we ended up going to Brit. We played in a couple other tournaments, but as a Rattlers employee, we've been a part of Brit ever since I think I've been with the team. So you definitely can experience some good times at Brit, and I used to go to it a lot when I was growing up. So it's a historical tournament. I think it's like the longest reigning tournament in the province. Maybe it's Western Canada, but yeah, it's been really cool. Actually, one of our players that is he played with our team last year and this year. His name's Adong McCoy. He's dunk champion, I think, for Brit one of the years that I can't remember what year. I think it's 2017 or 2016. And then he also won like one or two of the years in a row. So he's from Edmonton. I can't remember the name of the school off the top of my head, but yeah, he has some Sask connection because of Brit, which is pretty funny. So.
Well, I remember when it came to Edmonton teams, sort of little technical problems here in the studio. Harry Ainlay out of Edmonton was always they were always an evil team. They always had a stacked roster. I know I'm a little older than you, Brennan, but one of the highlights of Brit, and if you're of a certain age, they only ever came once, but man, they set the world on fire and then they left town. The New York Gauchos came and showed up, and obviously they just dominated. They were better than anybody else. You swear to God, when you if you could probably look at the team photo, and if you look back to be like, there's no way those kids were 16, 17, and 18. They looked like they were 28-year-old men when they were there. Yeah. All right, so the Saskatchewan Rattlers, the news came out last week. Now, the season won't start until May 2025, but new for 2025, the expanded schedule going from 20 to 24 games. What's the thinking behind that? Why, for fans, it's great. There's just more basketball, but what was behind that?
I think like in general, like we've been growing ever since we've been, I guess, in market, and, giving more people more opportunity, Saskatchewan in general is just a very big into like a lake kind of environment, and it gives people more of an opportunity to fit it in their schedule, which I think is awesome. As a league too, it really opens up some opportunities with broadcasting and all those other fun things that goes in with the schedule. We have a really great relationship with TSN as well, and we're going to be having a lot of our games featured throughout the year on TSN. So basically gives us more opportunities to show our exciting basketball atmosphere.
you've been with the team a few years now. Are you surprised about how passionate people are about this team and basketball and the Rattlers in general, and how they've kind of made it their own in a short amount of time?
Yeah, I'm not really. I don't think I would say surprised. I think you look at like BC and Ontario, you see like the Canadian national team, and a large number of those players like come from those areas. As natural progression kind of goes, like we're gonna start seeing some Saskatchewan players ending up on Team Canada rosters. We already have like Trey Lyles, playing for Team Canada, and I think this year is the largest NBA Canadian rostered year. So I think like just natural progression, we're just going to keep seeing it growing and growing. It happens to be one of the fastest growing sports in Canada. So as we get closer and closer to more relevant, you look at the NBA, like Toronto's like one of the biggest markets in the NBA, and it happens to be Canada's only team. So Canada is lucky enough to have the CEBL, and we're almost coast to coast, but we're here to stay, and it's exciting to see. Look at parents, like they're spending money on. I know there's a lot of hockey listeners. I'm not saying that we're going to take over, but you look at parents and accessibility and all that, and different demographics, and you buy Coley equipment, and for basketball you really just need a ball and some shoes on the court. So one of my cousins, go anywhere. So
yeah, I know one of my cousins, he has a 13 or 14-year-old son, and he's playing travel hockey this year, and it's $37,000 for his son to play hockey.
Wow.
And he is a goalie, and that's not equipment. That's not anything else. So what would you attribute? Is the coaching better than ever before that the kids coming up have access to?
Like in general, like in terms of community, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, in community at the high school level, at the university level, to feed your league.
Yeah. Honestly, like what I see is like, I just think the game as in general has just like progressed. Like there's more interest in it. It's more competitive. So naturally best players are going to be better than ever before. Right. I don't know. You look at like the way, 3-pointers has been a big part of the growth of basketball. And, there's a lot of new like techniques, and, the digital age also probably is part of it. Like I wouldn't say that, you've all these videos of people coaching people through social media. It's like, it's pretty cool to see basketball being like a focal point of a lot of like highlights. You look at a Sports Center, you look at TSN, you look at all that, and you see a lot of basketball plays that are making it in there. So I'd say like just in general, like basketball is like progressed in terms of like the sport itself. But yeah, I don't know if have you seen any of your CABL games? Not to put you on the spot, but
let's see here. What's the name? I think the last one I saw because what's the new team in Calgary? They just joined the league a couple years ago. What was the new team there? Ended up seeing one of their, the Calgary Surge. Ended up seeing one of their games. And then when you see, because then also too, what it did is it got me curious, and then I started going down the rabbit hole one night, because then you end up going from the CBL, and then there's the NBA Summer League, where all feeder leagues into the NBA, and then you start going and you clicking on these players, and then you're checking out, being like, oh, okay, I remember from college. Or you watch a random, could be NCAA game, let's say when the tournament is on, and you see a player or a name come up, and then you piece it back and you're like, oh, okay. And then you can kind of see where it goes from there. Because I think for a lot of players is if you went to university or college, a lot of them, it was now done, where now this is a chance for people to continue their careers and go from there. All right, let's talk. We got a couple minutes left. Let's talk holiday shopping here. If I'm a rabid basketball fan and I want to get into the Rattlers, this holiday pack, you get your tickets, your gift card, and what's the best part? You guys do deliver, but not through Canada Post. If people are getting this, is it going to be courier dropped at their front door when it shows up?
That's funny. That's funny you say that. This morning I did a bunch of personal deliveries out of my vehicle. So yeah, we're here. Customer service focused for sure. We're definitely able to ease to you guys no matter where you live. So we deal with Purolator, so we're good here. But I guess just details of what the holiday pack is and some other holiday options. So the holiday pack is just an option that we have right now that basically it's like your best bang for your buck in terms of tickets themselves, but then it comes with a complimentary gift card. So the gift card can be used on merch whenever you need to. It just doesn't expire as gift cards go. But you essentially get 4 tickets. You can use them for any game in the 2025 season. And yeah, they don't expire. You can use them at the very last game if you'd like. And they're really versatile too. So if 4 tickets, you can use 2 tickets for one game, 2 tickets for another game. Basically you just pick, it's like a la carte. You just pick what you would like. And then yeah, you get a free gift card as well. So we're offering that during the holiday season, which is great. We have a really, really good, large variety of merchandise right now in the store. A lot of new hats, a lot of toques and things like that. Some good stocking stuffers there. And yeah, you can grab them at our store downtown Saskatoon or at therattlers.ca/shop. And and select curbside if you're local. If you're not local, we'll make sure it gets to you.
or there may be this guy, hey, that's that Brennan I heard on the SportsCage. He just came by in a Rattlers Santa hat and dropped off our Christmas prize pack. Brennan, let's do this again in the new year as we get closer to the season. We appreciate your time. The Saskatchewan Rattlers, it's therattlers.ca if you want to check out the website. You're listening or watching the All New SportsCage on 620 CKRM. And if you're watching at sportscage.com, give us a like and a subscribe our YouTube channel. We appreciate it. Don't forget, coming up after 5, we're going to talk to retired NHL referee Tim Peel. He's part of the Snipes and Stripes podcast that he hosts with Jeremy Roenick. Stick close. The Sports Cage continues next after this. It's Wing Wednesday at the Canadian Brewhouse. Wing Wednesdays are unbeatable at the Canadian Brewhouse. Only 69 cents each and a mountain of flavors to savor and a flavor of the month. Do that wing thing every Wednesday at the Canadian Brewhouse. All right, it's time for our clutch performer for Nick Service in Emerald Park. Last night at the National Finals Rodeo, Canadian Scott Gunther. Colson, roll this. 3.8 seconds in the steer wrestling. Wow.
Yes, sir. He played hockey, so you know he's tough. 3.8 seconds. I'm not
Look at those Canadian flags in the crowd.
Hear you.
Man. Scott Gunther, your clutch performer for Nick Service in Emerald Park. So last night, that 3.8 seconds worth of work has won him $33,687 American. It's about what, close to 50 when he converts that. Night number 7 of the NFR goes tonight. And we had a chance in hour number 1 of the show to talk NFR with Dustin Edwards, who's a professional bull riding and rodeo announcer. If you want to check that out, you can find the podcast at sportscage.com. All right, time to take a break for news. And then when we come back, retired NHL referee Tim Peel will join the show. It's a momentous day in the career of Tim Peel. You may remember this, where he scored a goal on Roberto Luongo. We got all sorts of things to talk about with him, including Jeremy Roenick, and an interview last week with Theoren Fleury. It's the All New Sports Cage on 620 CKRM. You've got about 20 minutes left to vote on the All New Sports Cage Ultimate Christmas Song Bracket. The songs you're voting for today, Mary's Boy Child is up against Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, but I don't think it's the Irish Rover version, so I don't know. Mary's Boy Child is up at about 62% of the vote. Colson,
the polls have actually ended. I might have timed them out wrong.
You what?
Yeah, I'll wear that one.
Oh, get that Creed Christmas Carol ready to go, because we're going to need to play that again. So if you missed earlier in the show, since Glenn Suter wanted to add a song to the bracket yesterday, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. It's not even in the bracket. I'm like, well, I get to add a song if Suits can. We'll do that a little later. All right, let's get to our guest. The All New Sports Cage is brought to you by Regina Motor Products. This guy was a longtime NHL referee. He's now gotten into the media world. He's one of the hosts of the Snipes and Stripes podcast with Jeremy Roenick. And JR was on just over a month ago before his fundraising dinner in Weyburn. And he always talked about how he loves the people of Saskatchewan. Tim Peel, welcome to the All New Sports Cage. How are you?
I'm great, Maz. Thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan of the Saskatchewan people too. One of my dearest friends, he stood up in my wedding, is Kelly Chase, and I've been to the beautiful town of Porcupine Plain, Saskatchewan, a time or two over my career. But a lot of good friends: Melrose, Kaminsky, the Shen boys, on and on. The number of hockey players that the province of Saskatchewan has turned out is incredible, and referees. But I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Chaser, the news came out again. Leukemia, the cancer's back.
Right.
Have you talked to him lately? Yeah. I know he was on the Cam and Strick podcast. I was listening earlier today because they were asking about, hey, did you congratulate players after a fight? Have you talked to him lately, and how's he doing?
Yeah, good. No, I talked to him yesterday for probably 30 minutes. He gets on a tangent, and I just put it on speakerphone, do chores around the house and let him talk. So his spirits are good. Chaser's like, he doesn't want people to feel sorry for him. I'm like, I text him this morning, hey, can I bring lunch in to you? He's like, I got too many tests to do and all that. So, you know what? When he first got it, it looked really bad back in the summer and the fall, and he beat it, and now it's come back. So, you know, like Chaser says, it's just another fight that he'll have to win, and we're all praying for him, and he knows the hockey community's behind him. So he's doing well.
I remember as a kid growing up watching the Saskatoon Blades, and this was in the era of the Kelly Chase and the Tony Twist and the Kevin Kaminsky and all that. They don't make guys like that anymore. They do not make guys like that anymore. And to see what he's been through, it's amazing. Now, hockey is a small fraternity. Now there's the players, but then there's the referees. And there's some pretty famous referees that went on to NHL careers from Saskatchewan. So I'm going to throw out some names, and then you go from there. Brad Watson.
The worst dresser in the league, terrible clothes. Do not take any fashion advice from Brad Watson, but Brad was a tremendous referee, worked in the NHL for over 20 years, did several Stanley Cup finals. I loved working with Brad. He was the consummate pro. He took this job very serious. It was a craft that he took a lot of pride in.
But if he's making NHL money, like, would he not take your fashion tips and advice from you and the other referees, or what was it that just made the style so bad?
Well, listen, he should have been. I won't say he should have been Brad Wattstein or some Jewish name. And I've got a lot of Jewish friends, so I'm allowed to make Jewish jokes. But Brad is the cheapest guy I knew.
Okay.
But he's just a great person. I still keep in contact with him. He's now an officiating manager with the NHL and teaching the young guys now how to become hopefully great officials like he was.
Okay. Brad Meyer.
Another tremendous referee. Brad and I came up, we had very similar paths. He worked in the Western League. I worked in the OHL. We got hired the same year by the NHL. And the first 2 years, Brad and I spent it in the American Hockey League. We worked the Calder Cup finals together, and then got hired by the NHL at the same time, got promoted in 1999, 2000. And Brad and I worked a lot of games together. Brad was an excellent referee. We didn't work together, but Brad and I went to the Olympics in Russia in 2014. He worked a gold medal game between Canada and Sweden, and I worked the bronze medal game between between Finland and the United States. So, yeah, great referee, great family man, and just a great person.
We're chatting with Tim Peel here on the All New SportsCage, retired NHL referee, and he's a podcaster now. He's half of Snipes and Stripes with Jeremy Roenick. The sad news came out a couple of weeks ago that Mike Hassenfratz passed away. And I remember growing up watching Western Hockey League. To me, and I don't know, is it weird to have a favorite referee? Nobody did a game better than Mike Hassenfratz. He was always in control, and he was such a large man. Just the command that he had on the game. To me, I thought he was one of the best to ever do it in the dub, and then he went on to have a great NHL career as well.
Yeah, Hazy worked over 700 games in the NHL, and the only reason he had to retire is, ironically, he had a bad heart, and they had to do a procedure back years ago, and that's why he had to step off the ice. And from what I understand, he had a heart attack while sitting on his sofa in Florida. And yeah, it was sad to see. It's sad to hear. You know, as soon as I saw it, I told my wife. I said, "Do you remember Hazy?" And she's like, "Yeah, I remember Mike." And he was just a gentle giant. And you mentioned, you know, that having that he was such a big man that for guys like me that are 5'10", yeah, it's hard to get presence on the ice, and the way you get presence eventually is by how you carry yourself and so on. But Mike, when you're 6'4" or 6'5", you automatically have presence on the ice. And Mike was an icon in the Western Hockey League, was a tremendous referee, and was a great referee in the NHL and very well liked. And it was very sad to hear about Mike's passing, because he was, you know what Mike was? Mike was a gentle soul. Mike was as big as he was, and maybe as intimidating as he looked. He had a gentle soul and a great spirit about him that you just liked being around Hazy, and it made your day better when you were with him.
Mike Hassenfratz, born and raised in Regina, went to Leboldas, started out as a linesman, then was a referee, and was in the NHL training program. Then he got dropped. Then he eventually got signed. He went on to have a great career. So I'm going to ask you now, I said this earlier in the show, I don't have thick enough skin to be a landlord or a referee in sports, because I just can't take when people are yelling at me. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes, what city or place is there something that comes to mind where you knew people were going to get under your skin, or a certain guy or a certain gal in a certain place that could just get to you?
Well, not get to me, because the fans, I'm being completely honest, never got to me. I would laugh when the stadium would start chanting "Ref, you suck," and I would just I'd laugh under my breath, and because it was just, I always found it funny. But there was a fan in Philadelphia, as you know, their fans are very passionate fans. Nuts is probably a better way to put it. And but this is the great thing about hockey fans, because once you meet a crazy fan, and you maybe have a beer with them, their interpretation of you completely changes. And there was a guy in Philadelphia, he's called the sign guy. He still sits there behind the visiting goaltender. And he's been a season ticket holder for 40 years, and he's got a stack of 20, 30 signs, and he's got it for every play, you know, different scenarios. And so when we would skate out on the ice in Philly, he'd always hold up the sign, "Ref, you suck." And so one night we're at a local establishment close to where the Flyers play, having some beers and a bite to eat after the game. And he comes over and introduced himself. And I said, "Oh, you're the sign guy, eh?" And anyway, we sat and drank till 2 a.m. Well, fast forward a couple months later, and for the rest of my career, every time I'd skate on the ice, I'd always go to the guys in the room beforehand. I go, "What's the sign guy?" And I'd skate on the ice, and he'd hold a sign, "Welcome back." And I'd give him a fist pump like this. And we were obviously, we weren't friends, but we were friends through hockey that way. And that's the great thing about hockey fans is, you know, comments on my Twitter posts or Twitter feed about different things. You know, I hated you as a ref, but I'm really enjoying following you on social media and hearing your opinions. So, you know what? That's the great thing about hockey fans. They're very passionate. And so everybody was the same. It was like that in every city.
I think one of my favorite part about listening to hockey podcasts, including yours, because there's no ex-referee perspective, that's for sure.
No.
When people do impressions of the coaches, and I don't know what it is, but the Ken Hitchcock impressions, no matter who does them, always get me. Was Hitch that funny and whiny of a guy? Because he must have been whining at you guys as referees when he was behind the bench.
Yeah, he kind of had this whiny voice about him that would just kind of it was like nails on a chalkboard. But I liked Hitch. I had a tremendous amount of respect for Ken, and fortunately, we had a pretty good relationship. There were times that he was not happy with me, and I would just stay away from him. But yeah, you know what? And Ken chased me across the ice one night in St. Louis, and he was upset with a call that Mike Lego and I made in a game and chased us across the ice. But then I'd see him at a golf outing, and actually funny story, because I was golfing with Darren Pang and Ken Hitchcock, and I was standing at the tee box. This is like a year or two after Ken chased me across the ice, and now we're playing golf together. And he drove up in the cart, and he literally stopped the front tire on my foot. And I'm trying to tell him and back. And so finally he got the cart off, and Panger's laughing. He's like, he's getting you back for that call 2 years ago. We're belly laughing, right? It's a great thing about hockey, people.
And great stories. All right. Tim Peel is with us on the All New SportsCage on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. He's co-host of Snipes and Stripes, the podcast with Jeremy Roenick. Last week, the episode, you had Theoren Fleury on. And although you may have known him throughout the years, through hockey and all of that, now on the other side, when you're on the entertainment, you're preparing to talk to somebody, and with everything that he has gone through, were you as surprised as I was about how honest he was? Because he was bringing out some new information. Everybody thinks they may know the story, but he decided to go down some paths that I'm like, wow, that's probably not easy for him to say, but probably, and on the other side, for you listening, that's also got to be hard for you as well when he's bearing his soul to you both.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't surprised, Maz, and the only reason I wasn't surprised is because I texted him earlier in the day and I said, is there anything off limits? Because I obviously don't want to be disrespectful. And if there's just something that he doesn't want to talk about, and he goes, nope, Timmy goes, nothing's off limits. I'm an open book. So, I asked him about the time he had the gun in his mouth in New Mexico at this 6,000 square foot mansion that he was living in by himself. And he'd been on a 10-day bender of doing cocaine. And he said he had a pile on his counter, on his coffee table, like Scarface, and drinking vodka straight, and just was losing his mind. And, I was embarrassed to say, and the book's right there. I bought it. I finally bought it last week and started reading it. I don't know why I've never read it before. Probably because I've got a 12th grade education from New Brunswick, so I was maybe afraid that I wouldn't be able to get through it. But it's a tremendous book so far. I can't put it down. What this young man went through, and I was telling people that I would get text messages from people that I, friends of mine that listen to the podcast, and they are like, man, I didn't know he went through all this. And I said, imagine being a 14-year-old boy getting sexually abused by your coach. And then as you get older, that coach, Graham James, is now receiving the Man of the Year award in the Canadian Hockey League. The Man of the Year award. Yeah. Can you imagine like that? That just blows me away that, listen, times were different back then, but how somebody didn't speak out or speak up about a young man, and because obviously Sheldon Kennedy, and there's rumors of other NHL players as well, and how that just got swept under the rug is boggling to me. And then also what's more mind-boggling to me is how the guy only spends 5 years in prison for something like that. I don't understand that. But you know what? Theo is in such a good spot now. He's been sober for at least 10 years. Yeah. He told me he's in the last 10 years, he has given over 900 talks and speaking engagements. So, and I YouTubed one of his talks, and I said to my wife, I said, come watch him speak here. And I don't know where it was. And I said, man, he's good. He just walks back and forth on the stage, and he's just telling his story. And it's really, it's incredible. And it's incredible that he even was able to play at the highest level and to play like he played. The guy was just an absolute, he's 5'6". He was playing in an era, Maz, where, Dave Browns and
killers,
and
the certified killers were playing.
I told him on the podcast, I said back then, Theo, they wouldn't even hire a linesman that was under 6 foot back then, because the linesman had to get in there and break up fights with guys that are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". So yeah, it's an incredible story. And I'm just, it's as bad as it is, it's heartwarming to see how well he's doing now.
So to me, anytime I see Theron Fleury or Sheldon Kennedy do anything as functioning members of society and they're trying to make it a better place, I am amazed with everything that they went through. And I'll go back. I moved from Moose Jaw to Swift Current in 1997. I was switched radio stations and I went there. And I was doing play-by-play on TV for the Bronco games. And I remember quietly asking around about the James and the Kennedy and all of that, and if people were, still involved or if there was any connections. And I was kind of politely and quietly told, don't ever bring that up ever again. And I'm like, how can you, this is curious to be like, if there are still connections here. And then eventually I was like, okay. And for the betterment of employment, just to never ever. So for you to say, like, how could this have happened, that for all of that to gone on? And so for those are the people that we know about, and for all the people that we don't know about. And what got me is he told the story of the book signing. We all lived through this and we saw this play out, but you forget. And Theo gets attacked now because of his political views, because he wants people to have the freedom to do that. And a lot of people are making judgments about this man because of who he supports politically and how he wants to stand out for freedom, but they forget his story. But on your podcast, when he talks about at the book signing in Toronto and he sees a guy who looks like he's down on his luck in the way that he's dressed and all of that, and he pulled him aside and the guy said, "Me too." There we go. Yeah. The hair on my arm just stood up and my eyes are starting to water, because when you hear that, that how many people don't have the courage to do that, or maybe pick up that book, but they don't want to take that book to the counter. Maybe that's why, if you can buy the books online, that it's great. So by you guys having him on, I thought, no, that was great. And I'm going to reach out to see if you'll come on the podcast and talk about it, because now more than ever, and you're seeing this in the entertainment world with the Diddy stuff and all the things are coming to light, and people, doesn't matter the time frame if it happened. But back then, silence was that was it.
I know.
It was muzzled.
And what's sickening too is that I didn't know it until he told us the stats that it's 1 in 3 females are still molested to this day, and 1 in 5 boys. That's just that's an incredible stat. I've got 2 kids that are 10 and 12, and if it ever happened to them, I'd probably be in prison, because I just don't know. I don't know how anybody can. It just tells you the sick world we're living in, because it's just it's tragic. But you know what? I'm proud of Theo, and he you think about it, he got traded to the Rangers from the Blackhawks or vice versa, and probably the worst city in the league for him to be at is New York City, where you can go until all hours and hide 3 streets below because of all the underground stuff that goes on there. And, he was taking helicopters over to Atlantic City at 2 a.m. and he lost $3 million one year to the casino over there, partying. He would hang out with the homeless guys until it was time to go to practice and drinking with them. Like, it's incredible that he could even function. And I'm just happy that he's doing so well now.
Well, and I think the big thing is, though, and hopefully enough people will rally. I'm not one of them, but you guys have been influential to get him into the Hockey Hall of Fame, because if there's anybody that deserves that,
I agree.
I think it's him. We're chatting with Tim Peel. This is awesome. It's the All New SportsCage, retired NHL referee. Today's a big day in Tim Peel history. Colson, do we have the video queued up, ready to go? Did the NHL credit you with scoring this goal, or is that just here we are? This is Roberto Luongo, and what, Tim, what happened here?
That was an incredible. I've got the puck right here. The puck is in my office, and the off ice officials brought it in after the game. So it's December 11th, 5 years ago today. I'm working a game in the town, my adopted hometown now of St. Louis, and Robert Bertuzzo skates across the red line and snaps it in, and usually they either snap it closer to the goal or rim it around the boards, and he kind of took a different angle, and I saw it coming towards me, and I couldn't jump up because it was waist high, and I couldn't duck, and so I just let it hit me, and it hits me in the left hip, and as you can see, it which is crazy, it hits me in the left hip and then goes to the right and goes all the ways across the goal line and beats Luongo, and you can tell from the video, Lou is like, he does not know what to think. He is just beside himself, and the St. Louis hometown is going, the fans are going crazy, and the horn goes off, and I'm on all fours because I don't see it go in, and the linesman comes over, Ryan Galloway, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I go, "Did that puck just go in the net?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, oh my God. So Ray Burley, the trainer for the St. Louis Blues, comes out, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I think I need to step away for a few minutes. So I went in the dressing room and gathered my thoughts. And so the best part of the story, well, there's a couple, but I get home. So I come back on the ice, and Roberto Luongo is one of the greatest human beings I know. He's just a tremendous person, and he says to me right away, he goes, "Peelsy, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, Lou, I'm fine." I said, "But guess what?" I go, "For the rest of my career, I'm going to be able to say I scored on Roberto Luongo." And he just starts belly laughing. So fast forward 2 nights later, I'm in Chicago, and Florida's playing in Chicago, and Reimer was the backup. And Reimer's starting against the Blackhawks, and we're skating around and warm up, and Luongo comes, he sees me, and he makes a beeline. He comes right over, he goes, Timmy. I go, "Hey, Lou, how's it going?" He goes, "Good." He goes, "They won't even start me now when you're refereeing our games." And I laughed. But that whole night, the night of the game in St. Louis, when I got home, I was having a glass of wine with my wife, and we were talking about it, and she's like, "You're unbelievable, the different stuff that you've been through with the league." And she goes, "You not only score a goal, you score it for the town you live in, for the Blues, and you're the only ref to ever score a goal like that." And all of a sudden, my phone is blowing up, Maz. Like, it's just, I can't keep up with the texts and the phone calls, and I look at her, I go, "I have finally arrived." And she goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Wayne Gretzky just texted me and said, you've only need seven." He goes, Gretz texts me, he goes, "Timmy," says, "you only need 744 more goals before you catch Hully." And that was his text to me. It was unbelievable. It was, it was on the Today Show, and obviously every sports highlight. So I text the video to Bortuzzo because he plays for Utah now, and I text him the video today. I said, "Happy anniversary, Bortz," and he loved it. He's like, he goes, "A blooper video that will live on for ages," he said. So it was pretty funny.
So with St. Louis being your hometown, how happy were you for Big Walt and the Tkachuk family last year to see the Panthers win the cup and then see that cup get handed to him after they won? Was it hard for you not to get emotional over that?
No, it wasn't hard because I cry over watching Undercover Boss when somebody does something nice for somebody. So no, I'm a softie. I wear my heart in my sleeve, and Walt and I have been friends for 20 plus years, and Chantel has been amazing to me and my family, hosting parties for me when I worked my 1000th game. The Tkachuks had a big party at their house for me, and they're just tremendous people, tremendous family. And Brady when he was 5, Chantel called me one day and she's like, "Hey, Brady wants to be a ref for Halloween." So I had an old referee jersey and I took it over, and Brady wore it for Halloween. But then the problem was Brady wanted to wear it all the time. So Walt was playing for the Blues, and Brady would want to wear this referee jersey to the Blues game. And Walt finally put his foot down. He says, "My son is not becoming a referee. He's becoming a hockey player." So, and Matthew, I've known them both since they were 4 or 5 years old. So very happy for Matthew. Walt and I talked about it after they finally won it and put them away in 7 games. I said, if they don't win game 7, you never know. And, because Walt never played in the Stanley Cup final. You don't know if Matthew, as good a hockey player as he is, you may never get back to a Stanley Cup final again. Corey Perry won a Stanley Cup his rookie year in Anaheim, and he's been back to 4 or 5 since then, but he hasn't won a Stanley Cup since his rookie year. And so I was kind of not torn, but I was rooting for Edmonton and Canada because I have so much admiration for Connor McDavid. He's just a tremendous athlete. But my heart was, I really want to see the Tkachuk family raise the trophy. And I went to Matthew's Stanley Cup party here, and just to see Chantel and Walt and his friends. And Matthew is, the Tkachuks are so well respected and liked here in the St. Louis community because they give back. And, here's a guy from Boston, Massachusetts, and Keith Tkachuk that has got a lot of money and could live anywhere he wants, but they love St. Louis because of the people here. And that's one reason why I've stayed here for 23 years and met my wife. It's a tremendous town.
Well, Tim Peel, we really appreciate you making the time. And I'll say this, if the Snipes and Stripes podcast is ever going to go on the road and to do a show, you and Jeremy Roenick, we will find a spot for you in Regina somewhere for you guys to set up shop. In Regina. And I know Jeremy's probably shy and doesn't like to meet people or whatever, but we'll get him out there in front of the crowd. So if you guys are ever taking the show on the road. It's Tim Peel from the Snipes and Stripes podcast with Jeremy Roenick. He's part of the All New SportsCage this afternoon. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to wrap our ultimate Christmas song bracket for today, and we're going to check in. Week 15 of the NFL is upon us, and a big Thursday nighter. Rams 49ers, playoff implications everywhere. It's the All New SportsCage on 620 CKRM and online at sportscage.com. Hey, thanks to Tim Peel for coming on the All New SportsCage. If you missed any part of that interview, and it was a good one, you can always find the podcast at sportscage.com. The SportsCage and Canadian Brewhouse are teaming up for the Senior Hockey Dangler of the Week. All you got to do is... what are you? Zamboni driver? You work the ring kitchen? How are you the dangler of the week? You can win a $100 gift card to the Canadian Brewhouse. We're going to give these away every Friday on the Cage. If you haven't had a chance to enter yet, all you got to do is shoot the keyword dangler, DANGLER, to 306-936-6262, and that will send you back a link, which is an entry form. Tomorrow night kicks off week 15 in the NFL. It's a good one. Rams and 49ers. Now, there's playoff implications on the line. At best, the Rams and the 49ers are scrambling to get that wild card. For the 49ers, last year, after going to the Super Bowl, a lot of people had them as a shoe-in, but with all of the injuries, including Christian McCaffrey, it has just not turned out to be a great year. But they've somehow managed to rally. And the Rams, I said this earlier in the year, in a one-game playoff, you look at this with Sean McVay, and here's the standings right here. The Rams at 7-6, with a win tomorrow night, can really cement their wild card aspirations. Because I don't know. Let's see. Can they catch, like, it's a season series against Seattle, so I don't know how that's going to play out. But it should be a good game. And that's what we're hoping for. There were some good games in the past weekend, but not a ton. I love the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs conspiracy theorists are out again after that last second win on Monday night, the doink over the Chargers. I don't think the referees had anything to do with that. Because it's anything. The Cowboys memes are still coming out from Monday night. And if you missed earlier in the show, we were talking about how during the Cowboys-Bengals game, Joe Burrow's house got broken into in Cincinnati. And the lady at the house who called the cops is a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model that apparently isn't his girlfriend, but is one of his employees that is on the payroll. Her name is Olivia Ponton. Because I don't know, because people can check tax records. And so that's who. And, oh, sorry, Colson, we need to correct this. She's not only a swimsuit model for Sports Illustrated, she's also a social media influencer. No disrespect to everything that Olivia is doing these days.
Important
to be popular. Yeah. To do that. We're finding out that if the Las Vegas Raiders have the first pick in the draft, with the influence of Tom Brady and him being a partial owner, there is a good chance, if it stays with the number 1 pick, that they would draft Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders' son, and that Deion would allow that to happen because Deion has said with him and Travis Hunter that he would get involved so they don't go to bad teams because he wants them to have good careers. And I get it, but this whole Shedeur going to the Raiders thing, unless they replace everybody around him, these are one of the teams I think you would want to avoid, right? But apparently Tom Brady has been mentoring Shedeur over these past couple of years. And so there's a relationship there. But do you think Shedeur Sanders, Colson, is going to solve all the Vegas Raider problems?
Football's not a sport that one player can solve all your problems in.
No.
I'm sure it can make a difference, but 7 points in a game not always wins you the game.
Yeah, and there's a good chance Travis Hunter is going to win the Heisman Trophy on the weekend. I believe the trophy will be handed out Saturday night in New York City. And if you're one of the people and you're looking at the schedule, on Monday night, there's 2 Monday Nighters this coming Monday, and they start within a half hour of each other. I don't start one at 5 and one at 8. I don't get that. College football, it was championship weekend, and there were some great games. The dust is settled. The top 12 teams have been decided. A lot of fan bases are upset. My early season favorites that I put money on in Vegas in the summertime, the Georgia Bulldogs and the Texas Longhorns are both in. No college football this weekend. Here's the bracket. So Friday, December 20th, number 10, Indiana is going to play number 7, Notre Dame. And then on Saturday, the 21st, it's a triple header. SMU, which a lot of people are questioning why they even got in the bracket because of strength of schedule. They really didn't play anybody. They didn't beat anybody in the top 25. They're going to play Penn State. And then Clemson's going to play Texas. That's going to be a tough game. Clemson, this is weird. Clemson has no players from the transfer portal. They spend NIL money, but 0 players from the transfer portal, and they're proud of that. And then Tennessee's going to play Ohio State. Did you guys see that in Ohio today, somebody in Congress or something, or the state legislature, is trying to propose a law that if a team were to plant an opposing flag at the center field at the football stadium, that would become a felony, and that the player could be charged. That's how far this has gone after that Michigan loss.
Everybody takes things so personal now.
Yeah. Fiesta Bowl is going to be Tuesday, December 31st. Boise State's going to play Penn State, SMU winner. And a lot of people are like, same thing, Boise State, great record, but did you play anybody? You played obviously nobody in the SEC. Peach Bowl, New Year's Day, Arizona State, once again, played nobody. Play the winner of Texas and Clemson. Rose Bowl, number 1, Oregon, and they played some teams, winner Ohio State and Tennessee. And the Sugar Bowl, Georgia's going to play the winner in Notre Dame in Indiana. Semifinals on the 9th and 10th, and then the national championship game will be played on Monday, January 20th at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. And if you have money on any of these, best of luck to you. All right, we're going to take a break and come back. It's a big day in movie history. I don't know what it is. It seems every Wednesday that I'm on, there's some sort of monumental movie thing happening. We'll get more into that, and we're going to wrap the Christmas song bracket challenge for today, and we'll give you the winners. Stand by. It's the All New SportsCage on 620 CKRM. We've got a couple minutes left in today's show. It's brought to you by Regina Motor Products. Some CFL news today. It looks like Vernon Adams Jr. is restructuring his contract with the Calgary Stampeders to about $425,000 a year, down from around $500,000. Now that's going to be the hard money. And if this gives him a little more salary to free up to get some other players in, and more news out of Stamps land that they've signed kicker Rene Paredes to a 2-year deal. A lot of people thought if he's, another year, that's good, but guy's rock solid. He's the least of your worries. And if you can have a guy like that locked up, I think that's a good thing. Hey, Colson, last week when we had, why am I blanking?
Charleston?
Yeah, when we had Charleston Hughes on and he said, hey, it's my birthday next week. Should we have called him to give him a birthday shout out today? Was that like him saying, hey guys, it's my birthday. Don't forget me. Give me a call. Did we totally not pick up what he was laying down there?
Yeah, we might have dropped the ball there.
Okay, well, maybe next week. Maybe it's a belated birthday. So last week when we ended up talking movies. Last week, we found out that he had never seen the movie Elf. And so we just had asked you on Twitter, what's better, Christmas Vacation or Elf? And we knew Christmas Vacation was going to win, but I think Elf is the better movie. Today, it just happens to work out that 32 years ago, this movie hit theaters. And everybody that's listening or watching this show at one time or another has used this somewhere in conversation. It's one of the most quoted movies ever. So it was back in 1992. Tom Cruise, Demi Moore, Jack Nicholson, and A Few Good Men hit theaters with one of the most iconic scenes in movie history. You can't handle the truth.
Lieutenant Kendrick ordered the code red, didn't he? Because that's what you told Lieutenant Kendrick to do.
Object! And when it went bad, you cut these guys loose! Your Honor, you had markers inside a phony transfer. Your Honor, you doctored the logbook. Damn it, Captain! You coerced the doctor.
Consider yourself in contempt.
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Handle the truth.
Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns.
And then the monologue.
Who's gonna do it? You,
I know.
Lieutenant Weinberg.
And then
I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago and you curse the Marines.
So one of the things that I want to know about that is how many times did they have to shoot that scene? Because that monologue, and that's the thing, Jack Nicholson's a great actor. But to do that flawlessly, because he just goes on and on and on. Because and I remember reading about that. When they did multiple takes and he was bang on pitch perfect every time. It's so funny. And that's one of those movies, if it comes on TV, no matter at what point, I've got to watch it to the end because I know that scene is coming up, and you gotta watch that scene. And I gotta say, Kevin Bacon has a great flat top. Like Tom Cruise doesn't look like he's in the military because it's Tom Cruise. You don't have to cut your hair, but Kevin Bacon, that flat top. And I remember in high school, we used to go to the bus station in Saskatoon. The guy's name was Ted, and he did the best flat top in town. It was fantastic. All right, the ultimate Christmas song bracket. Do we have today's? Are we wrapped today? Is it officially closed? Who won?
Yeah, I have those numbers. Charleston's birthday is Saturday, by the way, so we haven't missed it yet. So we can next week. We can do this. We'll call him next week. Yeah, we can do this.
Okay.
But as far as the Christmas matchup goes, between Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree and All I Want for Christmas Is You wasn't even close. 86%. All I Want for You is Christmas. All I Want for You.
No, All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Is You.
So
Yes.
by Mariah Carey.
Correct.
Yeah, because there's a lot of
Dominated.
versions of that song. A lot of versions of that song.
And then the other match was Mary's Boy Child by Boney M and Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. Mary's Boy Child won 62% of the vote.
See, and I think if you would have specified that it's Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer by the Irish Rovers, that's a whole different story because that completely changes the narrative of who's singing the song.
Maybe we had a lot of votes for Boney M when we were putting songs in.
I know, Boney M. If there's one time a year you listen to Boney M, it's at Christmas. And speaking of Mom's 8-track collection in Saskatoon, she has Boney M as well. Everybody owned that Boney M album.
Yeah.
How much time do we have left?
Time.
What?
So.
Okay. Hit the Creed song. Play the Creed song out. I need at least 10 seconds of that. This is Creed Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer as we music end the show here. One more time.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Barney's back in tomorrow. It's the All New Sports Cage on CKRM and at SportsCage.com.